Hi, this is Len Edgerly. Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles podcast. Today is January 29th, 2021, and I'm coming to you from Sanibel Island in Florida. This week, I spoke with Police Chief William Dalton. He's the police chief of Sanibel, and I wanted to talk to him about the island's unusual traffic management philosophy. They have no streetlights, and they get 13,000 cars a day, and they all tend to they all have to go off and on one main drag called Periwinkle Way to get to the causeway back to the mainland. And they have traffic cops. Well, how does that work? Chief Dalton will explain it to us, and he'll also talk about COVID, how he reads books, and whether or not he reads murder detective mysteries. That was a fun conversation. I hope you'll enjoy it. I'll also tell you about Amazon's rapidly growing truck force for delivery of packages and about a revealing portrait of an Amazon third-party seller that appeared in the New York Times, which in the past hasn't always, I thought, done a great job covering Amazon. But they have a new person writing Amazon stories who is, I think, fair and insightful. Very interesting writer that I'm glad to see on the Amazon beat at the Times. Let's jump in. The first news story I'd like to talk to you about is from The Information. That's a tech, it's an online tech newsletter that I subscribe to, and I really, they've had some terrific stories, and this is an example of one. It's by Paris Martineau, titled Amazon Expands Secretive Trucking Program, and it was published in January 25th. It's about something called Amazon Freight Partner Program, AFP, which in the past year has signed up more than 130 small trucking companies worldwide to transport exclusively for Amazon. And nearly 100 of those, 130, are in the U.S. They have leased over 1,100 Amazon-branded tractors. Now, a tractor is the part of the truck that pulls the semi behind it. So they've got 1,100 of these Amazon-branded tractors that are pulling semis full of Amazon stuff around the country. By comparison, we've all seen a lot of Walmart trucks, and yes, there are about 7,400 Walmart tractors hauling goods in the U.S., but that's taken decades. I mean, that's what Walmart has built up, much longer than the brief period of time that Amazon has been building out its truck fleet. And they've also made big investments in cargo jets, last mile delivery vans, and even continuing R&D on drones. So what they're really doing, this article says, quoting an analyst, is building their own all-inclusive transportation network. And that, as is Amazon's way, is part of a longer vision, a broader vision to become a force in middle mile trucking from Amazon facilities, in addition to the Last Mile Initiative, which was launched in 2018. And that is going to give Amazon the chance to sell trucking services to other companies, including retailers such as Dollar General, which I think it's already doing. And they apparently aspire to be a top 5 U.S. freight broker catering to big corporate customers. If this reminds you of Amazon Web Services, AWS, I think that's a pretty natural connection. There is something which Amazon did just to support the Amazon.com webpage, all of the cloud servicing, and it got developed up into the point where it took a lead in having that be a business for Amazon. So this seems like a natural kind of continuing evolution for Amazon. And it's also one that you can, if you believe that the mission of being the world's most customer-centric business is fundamental to Amazon, starting from Jeff Bezos on down, this follows. One of the key things about customer satisfaction is when you order something, even if you're on an island off the coast of Florida, it shows up a day or two after you order it, no matter what it is. So the more control Amazon has over those links, especially the last mile links, but also the whole chain of it, the more satisfaction there's going to be from customers. So good, solid reporting from the information. We had Nick Wingfield on just before he shifted from his job covering Amazon for the New York Times for 7 years. He's now senior editor of the information as of June 2018. And it's owned by Jessica Lesson. She founded it in 2013. I recommend it. I think it's important technology news delivered on the basis of in-depth reporting and with, no clear angles, just trying to get to the facts of the story wherever they lead. The second article was recommended to me by Kes Woodward, my friend up in Fairbanks, and this is by a New York Times reporter who is covering Amazon in her On Tech column. Her name is Shira Ovide, Ovide, and the story that we're talking about this week is called One Tale from an Amazon Seller, published January 27th. It's the story of Molson Hart, who runs Via Hart, an educational toy company in Texas. And she writes, "My recent discussions with Hart offered a glimpse at the often complicated feelings of those who run the companies that fill Amazon's everything store. It felt as if he were describing a mostly loving, but sometimes maddening relationship with a domineering partner." And she points out this is just one seller, and, there are millions of these sellers, I think, at least hundreds of thousands. So, it's an example, not a survey of every single seller. But in this particular case, the business is now selling $7.4 million in sales. That's the 2020 figure, mostly through e-commerce channels like Amazon and Walmart. And so she refers to a blog post by Molson Hart, and he breaks down everything you need to know about his business. It's really fascinating. He says that if he lines up all the marketplaces where he sells things online, 93.4% of his sales in 2020 were via Amazon. 3.8% were through Walmart, so they also use Walmart. 1.5% were eBay, and then they have their own website, which results in 1.3% of their sales. Now, that Amazon number is obviously huge, and he shows a pie chart, and it's all blue just about. 2 years ago, it was even higher. It's 98.1%. And, anybody who has a business, you like to not have all your eggs in one basket with your major customer, and that's clearly the case with Amazon not as a customer, but as the way that they handle and sell their material. He breaks out that of $100 sold on Amazon, he gets back $48.25. That's net of commissions, using the warehouse, advertising, all the different pieces that he pays Amazon to, help support those sales levels. Walmart, he gets back more than that, $54.50 of the $100. And eBay, he gets $57.50 on his own site. He gets $83.10. He doesn't pay himself a commission, but, that's just a fraction of the sales. Shipping is about the same between Walmart and Amazon. Interesting to see that some of the reasons it's more expensive to use Amazon is that returns are a higher bite out of his revenue with Amazon. 2.6% of his revenue he has to return stuff because customers aren't happy with it through one way or the other. And he says it may have to do with Amazon's customer service or the customers themselves. Maybe they just expect more. By comparison, returns when he sells at Walmart are only 1.9%, and at eBay they are 1%. Storage, 2.4% of revenue is what it costs him, but it enables him to reach 99.99% of the U.S. in 1 to 2 days, which he says, quote, is pretty awesome. He also pays 3.55% of his revenue in ads, and that's because to get things seen and become a top result on Amazon, he has to buy ads from Amazon. So all the pieces are there, and he says in his article, the New York Times article, Hart said people shouldn't feel sorry for his fast-growing toy business, but he wanted to draw attention to some of the downsides of e-commerce. I asked him if he would pay just about anything to sell on Amazon. He answered yes. That is the unfortunate reality of selling toys. So, as I said, I agree with Kess, who, when he pointed this out, said he thought this was a fair story. I think it's a very useful story because it enables me to actually see what it's like to be a third-party seller on Amazon. We're hearing some of this come in the antitrust agitation. There were some third-party sellers that were brought before the committee when they had the hearing on antitrust, and they were very angry, and Amazon had treated them poorly. But this one, you could actually see that for the whole business was created by Amazon to begin with, because the first year of sales, it was under $100,000, and now it's in the millions. It kind of reminds me of the disparity between management and labor. And I'm not sure, there's probably all kinds of ways that this breaks down. But, if you work for a company, when I was a reporter at newspapers in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and Providence, you're a reporter. You get paid a certain amount. And I was a member of the newspaper guild. I was a member of a union. And when there came time to do a new contract, the union sort of threw its weight around, and we had kind of a tough union leader who was sort of a classic, something out of the movies. And when we sat down with the publishers who owned the paper in Woonsocket, there was some heft there. There was, nobody wanted to talk about a strike, but you could do that. What I'm hearing from these third-party sellers is they like, I liked working for the Woonsocket Call. I liked everything about it. But when I sat down to sort of negotiate the terms of my pay and things like that, I was glad that I had someone kind of in my corner. Maybe these third-party sellers need to get a union, or they need to have some kind of vehicle or forum for them to feel like if they have a problem with Amazon and they call and they don't get the call back in time, or they don't get an answer, they think that there's sort of like somewhere else they can go over their head. And I think that you could argue if something like that was possible, then you wouldn't have to go to Congress and expect that they're going to figure out a way to make all this work better than it works now. It's such a fast-moving, complex business, and you want to make sure the customers are happy. That's why everybody's winning. But maybe there are some ways that these third-party sellers can be heard. This guy obviously got heard, and he had a couple of gripes with Amazon that were solved rather quickly once there was this reporter from the New York Times asking questions. So great to see this new reporter. I'd like to get her on the show at some point and find out how she's approaching the story and what else we can learn from her. Time now for the interview. William Dalton was hired for the police department by the city of Sanibel in 1994, and he became chief of police in 2017 after holding a number of other positions in the department before that. He had earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of South Florida and his MBA degree from Florida Gulf Coast University. Last year, he was elected president of the Southwest Florida Police Chiefs Association. I visited with Chief Dalton on Tuesday, January 27th by Skype, and I began by asking if he had grown up on Sanibel or environs or come from somewhere else.
No, I grew up in southern New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, but I have lived in Lee County for about 30 years now.
How did you make the migration from southern New Jersey to Lee County?
I had a sick mother I had to take care of.
Oh. And you liked what you saw when you got down here and you stayed?
Yeah, basically. I went to the police academy in Sarasota, and I was working in the Sarasota County Jail after I graduated. And a friend that I went to University of South Florida with called me and said, Sanibel's hiring. I said, I've never been there. So I got an application and I filled it out. And before I took my physical test, I came down for a visit, and I thought, well, this would be a pretty good place to work.
Yeah, for sure.
It was probably around February, March of 1994. I got hired in May. So that was my first trip here.
How big was the department? How many people lived on Sanibel? What was the island like then versus now?
Well, it was very similar because, 2/3 of the island is refuge land. So really only 1/3 of it is available to be developed, and it was pretty developed then. And our department was about the same size. Actually, we're having challenges hiring officers now. And when I started, there was 24 officers. I'm budgeted to have 30, but I only have 23. We're working hard to try to get up to that number, but it's just difficult in these times. So, it's similar. It's still similar in size. There haven't been Cape Coral's doubled in that same time period.
Right.
So we haven't had that kind of change because we were almost built out. The last I've heard, one of our part-time officers is a builder on the island and has been for about 40 years. He said that there's down to like 30 or maybe 50 at the most building lots, individual lots. So you're not going to get a lot of growth,
Yeah.
So.
Well, now with the number of visitors, especially day visitors, has the traffic increased quite a bit in that period, even though the residences haven't?
Yeah, it has. And what's increased also is the off-season traffic. Used to be after Easter, traffic dropped off considerably and didn't pick up again until late in the fall, But now, like the holiday weekends in the summer, the island is just packed.
Really?
And it's the overall traffic is much more. Season was pretty bad then too. And one of the things that made it more difficult was we had a drawbridge, and during season there's a lot more people on boats as well, and then they can request to have that drawbridge open to get through. Right. And there was a maritime law. I think it's still in effect. It just doesn't have much impact on us anymore. That they had to open that, if requested, once every 30 minutes.
Oh, my.
So the drawbridge would take about 15 minutes to cycle, and then it only would be down for 15 minutes, before somebody else requested to open it. So that had a big impact on traffic.
Yeah. Is speeding much of a problem on the island now?
Speeding's a problem everywhere, and we're not immune to that. It is. I wouldn't say it's out of control or nothing like that, but we do a lot of traffic enforcement. And that's how we keep speeding under control. You're never going to eliminate speeding. It's similar to when I was in the academy, we learned about the history of law enforcement. And in 16 and 1700s in London, they would hang pickpockets, public hangings of pickpockets. Well, when they were doing that, pickpockets were working the crowd,
That tells you human nature is your real challenge here.
Sure. So,
how about fatalities? Do you have a few each year?
I would like to answer that like this. We do a lot of traffic enforcement, and that results in a very low traffic fatality rate for us. I wouldn't like to get into the specifics of it because I almost feel like we'd be jinxing ourselves. And I don't really want to have anything to do with somebody dying in a fatality, even if it were just a hunch and I felt like I had something to do with it,
That makes total sense to me.
So,
one of the reasons I thought it'd be fun to talk to you for my show here is there are no traffic lights on Sanibel. I guess maybe a little history. Were there ever any traffic lights and somebody decided, no, we're going to take them away? Or why doesn't Sanibel have traffic lights?
There were never any traffic lights. And it's my position, I would say, that if you question our citizens, the overwhelming majority would say they don't want a traffic light. The traffic problem, really, its peak is only 10 to 12 weeks a year. Most of our residents have learned to get around that. And in a nutshell, you just don't try to travel in an off-island direction from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. from the middle of January to the middle of April, and you'll be fine. So I think that folks like the small town ambiance of Sanibel, the charm of the island, and I think they would be vehemently opposed to a traffic light.
It's nice to have people of all different persuasions agreeing on something that strongly.
Sanibel, very unique place. I mean, our, when we have our local elections, the turnout rate is like 95%.
Really? Huh.
Yep. It's a very, very unique place, and the residents care about it, and they participate in their form of government and everything like that. So,
do you think if some sharp MBA student showed up and put a pencil or a spreadsheet to it, would it be cheaper to have say 3 traffic lights than what it costs to have the people directing the traffic, or is it maybe not really that much of a potential savings?
I don't think we've ever done a cost-benefit analysis of that, and I would say that mainly because we know the sentiment of the island residents, and that that sharp young MBA student might be one of the least educated people on Sanibel. PhDs and CEOs and everything. So
that's good. He would quickly be trumped by academic credentials.
He very well could be. Put it this way: there's not many places you work as a police officer where you're walking into the grocery store one time at Christmas and you run into the head of the CIA.
Oh, yeah. So, and I think, didn't the vice president sometimes vacation down here, or the former vice president Pence?
Yeah, former vice president. I believe he was here 4 times.
Yeah, I see.
Mm-hmm. So,
well, when you think about just to kind of sketch how you staff the traffic direction at the intersections, can any of the officers in your department step into that role if necessary, or do you have just sort of a core number of people that are trained to do it? What's the staffing like?
No, every sworn officer can do it, and every sworn officer has done it at some time. And then it almost equates to anybody who actually has their feet out on the street. Our sworn officers, our parking enforcement folks, and then our traffic enforcement folks all do traffic, And I haven't had to step out there since I've taken over as chief. But if something was going on, like sometimes people don't realize, we might get a call, it's a lost child on the beach. That gets all of our resources, us plus the fire department, And then our poor traffic people, they might be out in the intersection for 2 hours with no restroom break, no water or anything,
Right.
So at that point in time, somebody's got to give them a break. I would have no objection to doing it. I've done it many times before,
Yeah.
So everybody, during season, I generally tell the staff, traffic is everyone's problem. Yeah. And we all got to solve it.
How hard is it for someone to learn? I mean, as I drive by, I'm just kind of overwhelmed by the task, because you've not only got the traffic coming from the 4 directions, you've got bicycles on the path on Periwinkle, and I can see the hand signals. But if you had to take a raw recruit, say everybody was looking for a child and I volunteered to run the traffic, how long would it take me to just learn the basics and how to do it?
Well, first off, we wouldn't start yet at the most complex intersection we have is where Casabel and Periwinkle are.
Yeah.
We wouldn't start yet. We don't start people there. We start them at an easier intersection, either at Periwinkle and Lindgren, or during season, like when traffic's at its worst. And if we're starting somebody brand new, we'll start them at Tarpon Bay and West Gulf Drive.
Sure.
Because it's just simpler. We've had people who we first looked at maybe because, they were older and you thought, well, that person's not going to be able to stand there for 8 hours a day waving their arms. Some people don't. Some people quit in minutes.
Yeah.
Some people that you don't think are going to make it and do a great job. It really just depends on the individual, And then after they become accustomed to one of the less busy intersections, then, of course, they have to take a bite of the apple at Jerry's, so to speak, which is more difficult.
Yeah, and that's more difficult because of the bikes?
Bikes and turn lanes and a number of different things that you have to actually control, And you have to be able to think on your feet. If you can't think on your feet, you can't do that job.
Yeah. I imagine you've interviewed a lot of people to hire for that position. Have you come up with any particularly effective question or way to get a sense of whether your applicant is going to do well at this job or not?
There's not anything definitive. You really have to get the person out in the field and see how they react, So that's, like I said before, there's some folks, when they walk in, you think this person's going to have a hard, really tough challenge doing this, and they wind up doing it. And others, you think, okay, this person seems good, and they'll get out there and get terrified.
Yeah.
This is not for me.
I can picture somebody thinking it looks like a job they could do, and then I don't know what the scientific word would, fear of traffic, but I imagine you find yourself in that intersection, all of a sudden it reminds you of some childhood trauma, and you just freeze up.
You could, yeah. We've had that happen.
Yeah. Is there anybody that comes to mind who has done the job longer than anybody else in terms of number of years?
We have a supervisor and a second in charge of our parking division, and they've both been here 14 years, and they both still do traffic on occasion.
Yeah. And you talked about the shift. So how long is the shift? When are the breaks? What's the kind of schedule for standing there in that job?
Generally speaking, it's an 8-hour shift. Mm-hmm. Like some people will start at 9 and another one will start at 10 and another one at 11, so that we have coverage up until about 7 o'clock at night. But if traffic's still heavy, they'll have to stay. If there's an accident on the causeway and it gridlocks traffic, of course, then we're all here. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, at our two major intersections, that's Pearl and Lindgren and Jerry's, we'll have 2 staff there basically all day, and they go out in the intersection for 30 minutes, and then they take a break for 30 minutes. They go in the intersection for 30 minutes and take a break for 30 minutes.
I see. So there's the person standing there at the busy times, and then there's another one ready to step in.
Yes.
Huh. That makes sense.
You can't leave somebody out there for hours on end. You wear them out.
Yeah.
And they'll give up. They'll say, I can't do this,
Right.
I mean, it's not, I wouldn't sit here and say that, we have it figured out like a science of making widgets. But after, managing traffic as a department for probably about 40 years, through trial and error, we've figured out what works and what doesn't. And you can't wear your traffic people out because they'll wind up quitting, So.
Well, now, I think you're the president of Regional Chiefs Association here in Southwest Florida. Do people come to Sanibel to try to learn about traffic because we have so much more of it's so much more important to the work of the force here than maybe it is for most other places in the country?
No, I've never really had anybody ask me what our secret was or anything like that. So, typically in a heavy day of traffic in season, we'll have anywhere between 10 and 13,000 cars a day come on the island.
Wow.
And just for example, over in Fort Myers on Colonial Boulevard, where they're going to do that new traffic exchange. I think I heard something on the news where they have 1 million cars a day go down.
Oh my gosh! So 10,000 sounds like a lot, but in a city that would be like 5 minutes. Huh? Yeah,
I mean, what we do works for us here, but I don't think it would work elsewhere. And what folks do elsewhere, that wouldn't work here. We're just very unique.
Any special equipment they have?
I don't know. I lost you. I lost the audio, especially. I think you said you were coming across the causeway around dawn. I thought around dusk or something I saw there was some light. It wasn't just holding up a glove, that there was something that would help them be seen. And I'm wondering what kind of gadgets you use to keep them safe and keep the traffic moving. Yeah, they're just flashlights with the traffic cone on them, like either an orange or the high visibility yellow cone. And It just helps folks see their, and then folks can see their hand gestures better with those.
I don't know if it was a woman I saw that some of these people are really graceful. It's like they're on a stage and it's almost like a ballet. Do you kind of uncover some hidden talent where they're obviously keeping it safe and everything, but there's actually almost a show quality to how well they do their job?
I don't know if I would call it a show, but I think that some people do take command of the intersection more so than others. We had one person years ago in the past that had a military background, and he would do like real sharp pivots and everything like that, and people loved him,
Yeah. Now, what advice would you have for, because my wife and I and her sister are doing a lot of biking. It's one of the great things about Sanibel. As I approach one of these intersections on a bike, what should I know about how the traffic officer is going to try to guide me across the intersection safely?
Well, he's going to guide the bicyclist basically in the same direction the traffic's going. So if he had traffic running, say, off island on Periwinkle, he wouldn't encourage anybody to try to go perpendicular to that because it puts you in the traffic, So, and then I would say just listen and watch. Because, as you know, communication isn't all just talk. The officer will point at you and give you hand motions and stuff like that. So I would just use good common sense.
Yeah, it seems like if I have eye contact, I can be pretty sure they see me and I see them.
Yeah. Yep.
I read somewhere that you were the incident commander during Hurricane Irma in 2017, and that made me wonder. I mean, that was a terrible storm. I don't know how the winds got, but did you have a traffic person there, particularly with so many people maybe trying to get off the island? What was the job like that day?
I've been through 3 major hurricanes as an officer here. That one I was the incident commander because I was the chief at the time. But on the other ones, every other chief was the incident commander too. It was Hurricane Charlie in 04, Wilma in 05, and then Irma in 17. And the thing about a major storm coming in the summertime is you've got a 7 or 5 days notice that it's coming towards you. And people start to evacuate on their own. Because when we do our hurricane seminar every year, we encourage that. We tell people don't wait till the last minute. So in all 3 of those storms, we never had a traffic jam heading off the island.
Oh,
as the closer you get, the lighter traffic is.
I see. So that's good because that's when the storm's the worst, and you maybe don't even have to have anybody out there.
Business is shut down. So business is shut down. Resorts all shut down. So the island empties out prior to the storm getting here, and then traffic is really not a main concern.
Is it? Can the traffic officers at each intersection talk to each other on walkie-talkies or something if they see trouble coming, or they can coordinate among the different intersections?
Just a standard police radio.
I see.
Yep.
And they can just call. What would be a situation in which that would be helpful to them to help each other out?
I would say probably the most frequent thing would be they're on the same channel as the dispatcher and the officers. Yeah. And the dispatcher might put out a call that the medics are responding in a certain fashion, so they'll know that they're coming their way and they could stop traffic and help, facilitate that the paramedics get through. Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's probably one of them.
Yeah, of course. And everybody wants to make sure the medics can get through safely and quickly. I found a cool app that you've got called Sanibel Cams that I put on my iPhone, and it gives me the chance to see live the intersections. Are the people that know the island well and live here, what's an example of how they might use that app as they're planning a trip somewhere?
If they were planning something that, say, is a non-essential trip, they might open that app up and just look to see how bad traffic is. And then if it's real bad, go, I'm not going to go out now. I could do this tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow in the morning or something like that. It's not as talked about as it used to be, but when we first launched that app, we really got great reviews. Folks loved it,
Yeah, and I was checking it last night. I could even see what was happening in the night. So it's not just the daytime view.
Yep, it's live. Yeah.
I saw something you put up to sort of helping people to understand COVID and the risks and how to stay safe. And I can imagine that's part of your work. Do you think that Sanibel has had any particular advantages or disadvantages as an island in handling COVID compared to the mainland, or what's been your experience of people keeping safe during this pandemic?
I think the residents here on Sanibel, and it could be because of their age, that they took the virus more seriously earlier on, and went to wearing masks and distancing and everything like that before a lot of other folks in society did. But I mean, the message that we've received too has changed. I know back in the beginning, I remember the medical experts saying, "Save the masks for the healthcare workers and those who need it." So now we know that probably wasn't the best thing. But I mean, we haven't been through a situation like this for over 100 years. So I'm not criticizing the community. I think we're all learning from it. But I think our residents and business owners and stuff took it seriously sooner than it seemed like the rest of society did.
Yeah. Now, on your officers, are they all wearing masks, or do they get to kind of decide what kind of guidance do you give them?
Yep. We've provided a mask. We've provided sanitizer, wipes, shields if they want them. And we've also given disposable masks if they're out, say, on a call or working a traffic crash and another person doesn't have a mask. We give them some, enough masks to give out to others so that, we've done everything we can to try to make it safe,
Now, when I'm out riding the bike, I'm on the trail. The trail's kind of narrow. Should I be wearing a mask when I'm riding my bicycle?
That's a personal decision. I know that, the medical experts say if you're outside and you're not within 6 feet of somebody, you don't have to. I personally don't think it would hurt. I'm sure there are some people who maybe with respiration issues wouldn't be able to ride a bike with the mask on, but I don't think it would hurt.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It feels like it's out of respect. I've had people sort of thank me for wearing it. But like when I go on the boardwalk out to the beach here at Donix, you're kind of close to people. Sure. Usually I'll wait, and if somebody's coming, I'll just wait till they come down, then I'll go. Yeah. Well, a different topic. I've had some fun because a couple of I've talked to one writer, Jennifer Schiff. She writes something called cozy mysteries. They're sort of I don't really know the genre that much, but I've learned to appreciate it. It's like a combination of a romance and a murder mystery. And she's written. She has a series of the Sanibel Island mysteries, and then there's another guy, Ron Bass, has 12 books called Sanibel Sunset Detective. I think they're a little darker. I think there's a little more mayhem that takes place in those books. But it strikes me as kind of funny that I think there's not a lot of major crime here on Sanibel, and yet some of these authors are, if you tracked the crime by their books, you'd say this is a scary place to go. And I think it's because you've got writers that have fallen in love with Sanibel, and they write mysteries, so they're having murders take place down at Blind Pass, with the Shellers. Does that ever concern you that people are, to the extent they're reading these books, they get a misapprehension as to how much danger there is on Sanibel?
No, I don't think so. I think in this instance, the truth outweighs the fiction. I think a lot of folks know that Sanibel is a safe community. We remain a safe community. And we were a safe community when I started 27 years ago, So, and the reason is because we have a very good staff here at our department. Our officers, they take great pride and take care of the community. Our support personnel, like our dispatchers and the police aides that I've talked to you about, they take great pride in taking care of the community. I'm very fortunate to have this staff, and the men and women who make up our department are really the reason why Sanibel's safe.
Well, that makes sense. Have any of these authors ever come to you and said, I'm writing a story about Sanibel. Can you answer some questions for my research so I kind of get the story right from the police point of view?
I've never had that, no.
When you're reading on the beach and taking some time off, do you read murder mysteries, or what kind of novels do you like to read?
I would say I read things such as historical fiction, but not really murder mysteries.
Yeah.
So.
Any particular period you're most interested in the historical stuff?
I've read a lot of The Pillars of the Earth and that whole series. I read a lot as a kid and stuff too, so I still read a lot. So it's a wide variety of things.
Are you reading on a Kindle or on paper usually?
I'm on a Kindle now.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, this is the Kindle Chronicles. Which mod do you know? Are you on the Paperwhite or the Oasis or the Basic? Which one do you use?
I'd have to look. I don't know.
Does it have a light on the screen so you can read it at night and still see it?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So it must be one of the recent ones. They're great on the beach because you can be out there in the sunlight and they're easy to read. Well, as I thought about this too, I have a Tesla and it's got a pretty, Elon Musk is really pushing the autopilot and the self-driving aspect of it. If 10 years from now, most of the cars going through those intersections are on autopilot, you think you'll still be having human officers directing them?
I never even thought of that until you wrote that question. So that made me stop for a minute. I guess that's going to be something we're going to have to research and how we would do that. And, I don't know, but I can tell you this: in 10 years, there's going to be another chief here solving that problem.
You won't have to deal with that one. At some point, there may be people that think we need to have robot traffic cops, and they'll be talking to the robot cars. I have a feeling that, given the sentiment on the island that I've picked up from people like Mary Bondurant and other people and what you're saying, it'll be a long time before the human officers are replaced by anything that looks like a robot.
People have come up with different ideas over the years, like having maybe someone stand on a raised platform so they could be seen better. And I said, I don't think anything fixed will last long.
There could be a lot of pressure to come back to the way it's always been.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not a person that says, we're going to do this because we've always done it that way. I think we do what we do now because over the years it's proven that it works.
Yeah, sure.
And I would say that the improvements and different ideas that have come up to help manage traffic better have come from those people right out there doing it. Not from the chief necessarily,
Yeah.
So if there's a better way to do it, the folks who are out there doing it every day, they'll figure it out.
Can anything come to mind in the last few years under your watch where an idea came up from one of the officers and you said, yeah, that makes sense, and you actually changed the way it's done?
Yep. If you're down at Periwinkle and Lindgren, when the traffic's coming from the far east end, and then it merges onto Causeway Road as you're heading off, officers will go down there and stop that on occasion so that the traffic flowing off the island can get off. Oh. And then when the person is moving traffic that would be staying on island, then they let that go.
I see.
And one of the things that has driven that are these things here. Because everybody's got a traffic app, and it shows people how to go all the way around the west end or the east end of the island and come back up.
Yeah.
So, and we've, in the last few years, we started getting complaints from people on East Gulf Drive. They're saying the traffic's backing up in my neighborhood. It never did before. Huh. Well, I feel like, we had 13,000 cars come on the island today, along with 26,000 cell phones. And every cell phone is telling somebody that this is a shorter way to go.
Wow.
So now folks in those neighborhoods are experiencing problems that they never did before. So we have to kind of react to it, because whether people accept it or not, once Periwinkle clears, then every other traffic problem goes away.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it is still our goal, remains our goal, to get Periwinkle cleared, because once that happens, everything else is done.
So you have to stay one step ahead of the traffic apps on the phones to that's not reward sneaky behavior driven by the AI. That's something that the traffic officers didn't have to worry about 10 years ago.
No.
Well, let's finish up with, I can kind of just hear as you talk in the way the people love the traffic officers, don't want lights. And what I've experienced, we've been coming down here for several years. We're looking to buy a place here for the winter coming down from Boston. I've been to some nice places that I don't hear people say I love as they do Sanibel. It gets to be something other than just, boy, this is really a cool place to come with my family. And in fact, this author, Jennifer Schiff, was one of the ones that's sort of why she wrote her book. She said, these books I write are love stories to Sanibel because I love this place so much. Why do you think that is? What is it about the island that tends to, in a lot of people, not just attract them, but almost form kind of an emotional bond with the place?
Well, I think there's a number of things that are factors in that. First off, I think people feel very safe here. We've had I've been on calls where we've had like a car broken into, and just in the line of questioning, I was a sergeant at the time, and he's questioning this one woman, and she almost got offended at his questions. And I said, "Ma'am, I know you didn't lock your car in this instance." I said, "But do you lock your house?" And she said, "That would be so offensive to my neighbors."
That's funny.
So I said to her, "Listen, I can almost guarantee your neighbors are not breaking into your vehicle and stealing your change and so forth. So please do us a favor and lock your door." But that's just one aspect of it. We're very well known for taking care of the environment here. Mm-hmm. It's a very unique place because it's a barrier island and it hasn't been like completely commercialized. Yeah. And that really is a testament to the leaders in the early days that prevented that, because I know that Lee County had a development plan that would have allowed a lot more units on the island than what the Sanibel plan did. Mm-hmm. So there's a number of things that really combine the culture, the environment, the safe feeling, the small town feeling, and some people really do have form a very strong emotional attachment to Sanibel, like you said.
Yeah. Well, and as head of the police force, it's clear that your job of keeping people safe, you're right at the center of what's important for Sanibel. Are there other aspects of your leadership that you think can contribute to the positive feelings people have about Sanibel in addition to just the safety of it?
Yes, I think that our department, we don't play the only role in creating Sanibel or making Sanibel feel like what it is, but we do have a big role, And, like I had said before, our officers take great pride in taking care of the community. We have an officer who works full-time on the beach, and he takes his role very seriously, and he considers it almost like his beach, and he and I think that we have a lot of respect as a department in some of the ways in which we enforce the law, because like out there on the beach, when somebody is committing an ordinance violation, typically speaking, this officer will stop them, will educate them, and then give them a warning.
Sure.
It won't write them a citation right away. But if he catches a person out there doing the same thing 2 days later, then, you will get a citation. So I think a lot of folks realize that, we're not heavy-handed, but we are here to protect the citizens, protect their homes, and we're here to protect the environment.
Yeah.
We have 2 Marine officers. If I get some more staff, we'll have 2 beach officers, and for a small island, we have a lot of effort put into taking care of the environment.
Now, Ding Darling, the big national reserve, do you have a role there, or is that all federal officers that are responsible for it?
It's mostly federal, but they will call us on occasion if they need some assistance, So we have a mutual aid agreement with them, So they've helped us in the past too. After Hurricane Charlie, they brought a lot of equipment in and everything, and we work together as a team. We work together with Ding Darling very well. We have for years.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important for people to know about Sanibel or your work with traffic or anything else?
Well, as far as traffic is concerned, like I said, it's a 10 to a 12-week-a-year problem for us. For folks to avoid it, just avoid going off island during season from 3 to 6 p.m. Overall, the whole city is very well serviced from Public Works, our utilities department, all the behind the scenes like planning, natural resources, finance, everything. And then, our department, we are kind of the tip of the spear. That's typical of most police departments. And I'm very proud of our officers and their commitment to this community. They're committed to keeping Sanibel safe. And like I had said before, our dispatchers, our police aides, all of our civilian personnel, they work very hard as well. And I'm very fortunate to have a staff like that. They're committed to taking care of the island, and I think we do a very good job at that. And like I said before, the men and women of this department who keep the community safe, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
Well, I can see why. As a visitor and hopefully a resident someday, I want to thank you and your officers for your work.
We'd like to thank everybody for the support too. We receive a great deal of support from the community, and we do appreciate that.
I have been speaking with Sanibel Police Chief William Dalton. Thanks very much, Chief.
Sure. It's nice talking to you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that chance to hear from Sanibel Island's Chief of Police as much as I did. These conversations that I'm having with Sanibel leaders and notables have given me a way to learn more about the island and what it might be like to establish a seasonal home here. So it's been a great opportunity for me, and I've enjoyed it. I loved the woman's comment that the chief told us that she wouldn't consider locking the door to her house because it would offend the neighbors. And it gives me hope to hear that the diverse populations of at least one small town in Florida could be so united in their opposition to installing a streetlight that so much that the matter hasn't ever even been studied for possible budget savings. Imagine that, a whole community agreed on something important like that. I want to thank our ace realtor and Sanibel friend, Mary Bondurant, for putting me in touch with the chief, and I appreciate his assistant, Kathy, who was able to schedule our conversation on very short notice. And yes, we will be leaving the door unlocked tonight as usual. I have a content item I'd like to share with you. I'll have a link to it. It's an article which contains an excerpt from an intriguing new book that's going to be coming out about Amazon. The title is Working Backwards: Insights, Stories, and Secrets from Inside Amazon, and it's available for pre-order with publication February 9th by St. Martin's Press. The authors are Colin Breyer and Bill Carr, two former Amazon executives who started work at the company in 1998. 1988 and 1999, respectively. They had 27 years of experience between them. The excerpt that was published in Entrepreneur, which you'll find a link to in the show notes, it tells how a rather odd meeting with Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos laid the groundwork for the Kindle. It's a story that I've never heard before, and I have a feeling this book might be full of them. Unfortunately, I was not able to schedule an interview with the authors during their virtual book tour. I think I got started in that process a little late, but maybe there'll be a chance to catch up with one or both of them later. My guest next week is going to be Patrick Wolahan, and he works at Amazon, and he has been overseeing the Kindle updates. I reached out to them quite a while ago when we were talking about the latest update for the Oasis and the Paperwhite and the Kindle. So he's going to tell us what Amazon tries to do in these updates. And I think we may get a chance to talk about that patch that I told you about last week. There's kind of an extra story to the most recent update. On Monday, Darlene and her sister Deb and I will be moving to our next rental. This will be the third and last rental of our stay down here this winter. We will be in a house next to a golf course on the bay side of Sanibel, so I might actually rent some clubs and see if I can remember anything about golf from after about a 30-year hiatus when I played in Casper, Wyoming. Each move that we're doing on the island is becoming more of an undertaking because we keep buying stuff at Amazon. And Darlene bought a chair that I'm going to have to put on the top of the Tesla and hold with my arm out the driver's side window. I'm going to try to pick a quiet time to cross Periwinkle to get it from this house to the next one. I'm kind of amazed that we're halfway through our stay here, but we're all loving it, and we've already booked a waterfront condo for December, which will be the start of next year's winter exploration of the island. We're getting lots of time to figure out what we might like if we have a chance to buy something here, and that's going to depend on the waking up of the still dormant real estate market for condos in downtown Denver. Thanks for listening. Great to have you with me here on Sanibel, and I hope you have a good week. Take care.